I'm Steph.
Hi, I'm Molly.
And I'm Sarah, and today we're going to talk to you about the college application process. We're here with Vina, a freshman, and she's going to ask us some questions.
What's Common App?
So, in case you don't know, Common App is the centralized college application site. A lot of different colleges do their applications through there. It's not as complicated as you think, but you're going to want to make an account early on. It opens in August, so make your account, get signed up, and by the time applications start becoming more of a thing, you'll be ready.
Although, don't stress out about it if it's not completely done in August. I personally didn't apply to college until probably late September, early October, and even some in November. So even though it opens in August, don't stress out if you aren't right on.
Yeah, totally. I would make an account early on, but I personally didn't submit my applications until Thanksgiving break.
One thing I would also note is that don't stress about early decision or early action unless you know for sure that's what you want to do. But there's no problem with rolling decision or regular decision 99% of the time. This year was weird because there was a weird amount of applications that came in, but chances are that won't happen to you. So
No. On that note, does someone want to talk about the differences between early action and early decision?
I got this. Okay, so early decision is binding, meaning you apply before their regular decision deadline, and if you get in, you are binded to the school and you have to go there. And this is good if you are for sure that you want to go to that school. However, when it comes to schools that may be on the more expensive side, and I personally was not able to afford early decision anywhere, so even though I had my top schools, I did not apply there. However, I did apply early action because that is the one that is before regular decision, but it's non-binding. They say you have a better chance of getting in with early action, but I don't actually know how true that is.
I do know, I applied to Cortland and they filled up before they even got to regular decision. So if that's what you're concerned about, that's definitely something to keep in mind. But the other thing is with early decision is that you often do get less financial aid because it is binding. So if you have to go there regardless, why would they give you financial aid when they could potentially use that financial aid to convince someone who isn't going to go there regardless, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I applied to, I think, 2 schools early action. And if you have your applications ready, it's a great option because you get your response back sooner. So I knew in mid to late December my decisions for the 2 schools I applied early action to.
I think I found out about Vermont on spring or Christmas break.
Yeah.
Great, right?
But you have to remember there's always the option that they could defer your decision. One of the schools, my decision was deferred. That just means they push it back and then you get your decision with the regular decision people.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
All right, next question.
How many colleges, on average, do you think most people apply to? And how many did you guys apply to?
I think on average people apply to anywhere between 8 and 10. Personally, I applied to 11 because I really want it. Because with the Common App and if the application's free, what's stopping you? If you have any interest in that school, you never know what could happen. So
Yeah, I feel like people apply to a varying number of schools. My parents each only applied to 1 school, and that was the school they went to. I applied to 9. You have to remember, though, there are application fees. Those are roughly $70 per application that you send in. But if you are on a school's emailing list or have a special situation like your first generation college student, they often will offer you a fee waiver. So be on the lookout for fee waivers and also be aware that those costs can add up.
Mm-hmm. I applied to, I think, 12. I applied to a lot. But so SUNY had this week where you could apply to 5 SUNY schools for free.
which is annual.
This is true. So I took advantage of that. And then the other ones were, like Sarah said, how I just got random application fee waivers just because I was on their mailing list. So I ended up actually only having to pay for, I think, 3 of mine altogether. So that's why I was able to apply for so many. So
Yeah, definitely take advantage of that free SUNY application week. That's awesome to be able to apply to 5 schools for free.
I think traditionally they're $50 maybe.
Yeah.
It depends on the school. A lot of the smaller ones, it's free anyway. But for some of the mid-sized ones and UAlbany was 70, or no, it wasn't 70. It was 50. Just kidding. But Fredonia was free because it's such a small school. So it does depend, but I would definitely just get all your SUNYs in. I believe it was November 1st originally, but they extended it this year to be November 30th. So just watch out for that.
Also, if you're planning to go to HBCC or FMCC, you really don't have to worry about the Common App too much because all you have to do is go to
An instant admit day. Yeah.
that we have in our guidance office, which is free.
Also important to note, some of the bigger schools, actually not a lot of them, but like Carnegie Mellon, they have a really expensive application fee, but you get a discount if you apply sooner. So instead of paying $100 for an application, it's $70.
I think the most I had to pay was $85. I think, for either Syracuse or Washington.
My highest was $75 for MIT.
Yeah, my highest was 70.
What prompts are there for your guys' college essays?
So there are a lot of prompts, and one of them is literally just like write about something that you care about. But
You can make pretty much anything your college essay. I think the
This is
last
true,
prompt
too.
is write about
Share
anything.
an essay
yeah,
on any topic of your choice. It can be one you've already written, one that responds to a different prompt, or one of your own design. But I would say that the majority of the ones on the Common App are if you've ever experienced a hardship in your life and how you work to get through it, or something regarding how you came into your identity or how you grew an interest. So that's kind of basically, which
Yeah,
is
those ones are
basically
really
what I
popular.
wrote about.
yeah. Personally, I wrote about how I struggled with ADHD until I was like 15, and then finally someone I got the teacher things that said, oh, you have to go get checked out by a psychologist, and was able to get diagnosed, and how that affected my high school career. But so I feel like if you have one of those individual struggles, you should definitely really milk that for all it's worth, because not only does that get you into college, it also gets you merit. But anything that really shows who you are as a person and is definitely unique to you, because like I said, Sarah moved houses. Lots of people move houses, but it's putting your own spin on it so that way you can make it more relevant to your application.
That's basically what I was gonna say. A lot of people go through moving, a lot of people go through divorce. You just have to find something that's unique, but then also shows that. And also, you can kind of craft it to the schools you know you're applying to. If you know you're applying to a fairly left-leaning liberal school, write your college essay more on that side.
Yeah, for my essay, I wrote about moving schools originally and then had the realization that that's a very popular essay topic and doesn't really set me apart as an individual. So I tied that with falling in love with robotics and the robotics club, losing that club and having to rebuild it, which actually ended up working out perfectly because you get to demonstrate to the school your persistence and how much you'll fight for things that you want. And to the schools I ended up applying to ended up leaving a note on my acceptance letter about how impressed they were. So write about something that you're passionate about, and it'll definitely help you out.
Another note I want to just point out about my essay was that I am going for psychology, so it really did help tie my essay together and really focus in on why I want to pursue psychology.
But on that same note, I personally am going for environmental engineering, and I wrote about insecurity and then confidence and toxic femininity is what I named it. But that has absolutely nothing to do with science or math. But so you can write about it, but you also don't necessarily have to write about how something gets you to your major. Which I personally thought that you had to write about your major, so I was very concerned when I originally wrote my essay, but turns out it's not the case.
Yeah. On the note of majors, make sure you apply under a major that interests you. I originally thought I wanted to be an engineer, and then after I'd submitted all my applications, realized that I wanted to be a physics major. And so the schools I applied to under physics, I was really happy with. And then sitting through an engineering acceptance students day, I wasn't the biggest fan of those schools, just merely because of the major and the different experience I had.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone listening to this or Bina is familiar with Anna Dabrowski, but you don't, just because it worked for her doesn't mean it works for everyone. I mean, she applied as an engineering major, got in as an engineering major, got a full ride as an engineering major, and then changed majors her first semester. So it's important to know that you're going to actually enjoy your school, because that could have very easily gone wrong.
On that note too, when you are applying, I have heard personally that you don't want to apply to something super general like physics or chemistry, even though you didn't apply for physics. But I truthfully don't know how valid this is, because I know that I applied for math to Syracuse and I got in, but then someone else who has better grades than me applied for chemistry and they didn't get in. So both those are kind of just general topics. So I don't really know what you guys think about that.
Acceptance rates don't necessarily apply to the whole like the acceptance rate listed on Google is for the whole school, but they can vary based on department. So for example, we have FMCC right here. It's a community college, so they do have 100% acceptance rate, but the nursing program is highly selective because they have such a renowned. So just because you can get into this school, what program you're going for might affect your chances of admission.
Very true, very true.
This is kind of going back on the topic of essays. How long on average do you think people make their college essays? Like if you were to
650
Yeah,
words.
that's the maximum. Honestly, I would shoot for a nice solid 400 words. Say what you gotta say, and then don't say anything else.
I personally think the 650 word limit was like the hardest part about writing the essay.
It was so difficult.
But so the key for that is don't write a 650 word essay. Write your essay, tell your story. I think my original draft was like over 1,000 words, definitely. And then work to like trim it back, boil it down to what's important, and try to get it under that 650 word mark.
Mine was originally. So if you are going into your senior year and you're watching this, Miss McDonald will have you write an essay, a personal narrative that also kind of doubles as your college essay, and she kind of like hints that it should. And so I originally had wrote 1,200 plus words for that, and then had to cut it down to 650, which was actually super difficult, but I think it made me a better writer. But in the end, I ended up having 648 words. I just pulled it up.
Yeah, and again, like, just say, like, you can tell your story in probably 3 sentences, whatever you're gonna say, regardless of what it is. I mean, writing is more difficult, but like, if you were to walk up to someone and tell them all of that, what happened,
Cliff Notes
that's it.
version.
Yeah. So, like, college administrators have a lot of essays to read through. They do not want to spend 20 years reading yours. They are not going to spend 20 years reading yours. So really just, like, make your point known and then end it.
Cute and interesting.
On that note, who should you have like read your essay for you? It's really helpful to like use the teachers that you have around you, but it might not be the best choice to like pick your favorite teacher who's super nice and always friendly. Well, that's awesome. You also want someone that can like critique your work and is going to like dig into it and rip it apart and make it a better piece of writing.
Yeah, basically. I mean, it is good to get that self-affirmation, but
On the topic of teachers helping, I think we should address recommendation letters and who you should ask. So I asked Mr. Levin and Miss Sheehy because Mr. Levin was the president or the advisor of Science Club and I was a president, and then Miss Sheehy because she was a pre-calc teacher. And so I think it's good to ask teachers who are in the field that you're going into. And Miss Sheehy also did robotics, that's why I asked her too. But I also think it could be beneficial if you have more than 2 to ask a teacher that's not in the same subject to show that you are wide-minded, because sometimes you have science and math kids and then English and history kids, so showing that you can have both is good.
Yeah. So in the Common App, it usually lets you have 3. Some applications will only say 2, and then you can just pick whichever ones. Miss Mork automatically writes you 1, the guidance counselor.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Be on her good side.
Yes.
Another thing, just because, like, I'm going for psych, but I'm going for a bachelor's of science. So I got Mr. Levin, I got Miss Dowen to be a recommender because I wanted that extra little, like, because she's the advisor of Student Senate, so I wanted, like, a club recommendation. I got Miss L, and I got Miss Ostrander because that's a very diverse, like, profile. So being that I'm going into a social science field, but it's a science degree, I wanted to make sure that I had all my bases covered and could demonstrate my knowledge in all areas.
You can also get an employer to do that for you if you aren't really involved in school class and other classes and stuff. I think it's just like a whole nother section, but it can definitely be done.
Could you get like a coach to do it? Like,
Yes.
Yes, you can get a coach to do it. I personally couldn't because it can't be a relative, but
I did the Kristens, Mr. Darlington, Miss Ostrander, and Miss Sheehy, and that also was like a good variety of you had some science, you had some math, computer science, and a club advisor, and then an English teacher and a club advisor that I worked closely with.
I would also say when you do ask a teacher, be relatively confident that they do like you, because I know people who have asked teachers and they did not get a good recommendation.
Yeah. If you like were really poorly behaved in a class, don't pick that teacher to be your recommender, because then you're gonna wind up with a recommendation that's like, oh, so and so is not fun to have in class. Like,
Yeah.
you don't want them.
Basically.
On a totally different road, what about like financial aid? Like, how do you get more than what you can already have?
All right.
So basically, you want to
Just appeal. Just email everyone
Yeah.
all the time.
and use Galway to your advantage. A lot of schools are a lot bigger than Galway. They offer more opportunities. They're
We only have 2 AP classes. Personally, I only ever had the chance to take one, and I didn't. So,
Yeah.
basically, I actually started off a few. Anna Dabrowski actually sent me hers, and it was like, Galway only has one AP class, and I was like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna use that.
and
sentence.
really, like, any of, you know how I was talking about struggles before? Again, really just, like, label them, and even if you're a sibling, that can help you in this case, because, like, you can be like, oh, I have a sibling, and my parents are already in debt for them, or they're gonna be in debt for them, so they can't help me, and, like, just any little thing that might mean that you don't have as much money as other people, just outplay it as much as you can.
Yes.
On that note, I think we should rewind back to the beginning of the financial aid process, the FAFSA. The funds for that are first come, first serve, so apply as soon as you can. And it's not too hard. You're going to need your parents' help. The school is a great workshop through FMCCA, I believe it is,
Yes, my mother
in
goes to that every year.
October. That can be really helpful. There's the FAFSA, there's the TAP, which is the New York State grants. Fill that out as well.
I believe you can fill out the TAP when you fill out the FAFSA,
Yes.
so it's like one form, and then you're just like, oh, yes, I would also like to submit this to New York State, and then they do it.
There's also another thing through that Syracuse had me do through the college board.
the CSS profile.
Yes, although I did it alone and did not have the tax information, so
If you're applying to
It's-
private schools, you're going to be asked to fill out a CSS profile, which is pretty much the same thing. There can be fees to apply for that, but if your family
it's only
makes under a
$25,
certain
I think.
okay, if you make under a certain income amount, those fees will be waived. For me, they were waived. On that note, private colleges versus public. Remember that public colleges can be cheaper if you have good grades and not a huge college fund. A private college could end up being cheaper because they tend to have better scholarships.
But another thing to keep in mind in New York State is the Excelsior Scholarship. If your parents make a certain amount and are employees of the state, and employees of the state is a pretty broad definition, and make a certain amount is also, I think, especially if they have joint income, but even more so separate income. If one of them works for the state, then you get free tuition as long as you work in New
Yeah.
York State for 5 years, which
So, yeah.
honestly, working in New York State, a lot of people want to leave, but it's really not that bad. New York State is ranked number 1 and has consistently been for job placement after college graduation. And in the Northeast has some really great schools. The SUNY system is actually like really good. Speaking as someone who's going to a private college, I know, but definitely take advantage of that because that could really come in handy.
And like New York is such like a broad area, so if you don't like want to work in like upstate New York, you also
Sure.
have the city where you
Yeah,
could
the
work
city.
too.
Exactly.
It's the same thing as with the FAFSA, though. The funds are first come, first serve. So make sure that you are ready to apply when the application comes out for the Excelsior Scholarship. I believe it came out like 2 weeks ago, so it should come out in like late May. And then just be ready to apply and get that application in as soon as you can.
Although I have heard of the Excelsior Scholarship also not coming out until July. So, you know, you really got to pay attention.
Another thing to take note of the Excelsior Scholarship, so I actually am going to a SUNY school, and so if the school gives you scholarship money, then that takes out of the Excelsior Scholarship unless the scholarship money is like, we're not going to be used on, like, it's for housing or something. Like, so for example, I got, so ESF only offers in-state kids a scholarship of $5,000 and like 3 different things, and 1,000 of that was for housing. But then since the Excelsior Scholarship is only $5,500, then I would only actually get $1,500 from it. So there's just that to take into consideration. And then also there's this thing called the STEM initiative through SUNY systems, or if you're in the top 10% of your graduating class, which unfortunately is only 6 people. And being number 6, I actually think it's only 5 people now because I don't know if we have 60 kids who are in our class.
I don't know.
But anyhow, if you are in that lucky top 10%, you can actually get free tuition off of it, and I think that is $7,070. I think that it does, but then you have to stay in New York for another 7 years after that.
But again, that seems like a lot. It's really not. And like,
For the amount
I
of
don't
debt
know.
that you're gonna have to take if you do
Exactly.
for the time you'll have to pay.
Like,
Mhm.
and there are also a lot of those programs, mostly for medical fields, but I have seen them every once in a while for something else, where like, oh, if you come work in Alaska for 2 years, we will completely pay off your student loans. So, but that's, I don't know, haven't personally experienced that yet, but it's something.
While you're here in
It's
high
out there.
school, Mr. Takarusso's PFM class
Or
is
take it.
super helpful. Yeah, definitely take it. There's a whole chapter on college and how to get a degree debt free, and that was really like a driving factor of my like goals at the end of this year.
I would definitely say that I chose my college based on how cheap it was. Like
Yeah, me too.
my top choice was UVM, but even with the scholarship, it was just twice as expensive as
Yeah.
ESF.
Oh, what about like in-school scholarships? Like I know that we have like the Andrew Izzo one. What other ones do we have, and like how do you?
We have
You got the
a
Rensselaer
ton.
medal,
There is, so there's the ones that you get based off of being smart and whatever, and then there's the ones in guidance. And I have heard Miss Mork say so many times that not enough people look through that folder. But if you walk in, you can ask Miss Colangelo. She'll give you this folder full of scholarships, and just pick all the ones out that even remotely apply to you and apply for them. A lot of them are just like, oh, write me a paragraph about why you want to do this, or just some of them are just like
They're
just
from,
an
like, the
application.
garden club, like
Yeah.
random things.
Yeah. 250 words can sound like a lot, but if you're like motivated and focused, you could write that in 5 minutes. Like it's not that long of
And
an
also
application.
keep a master copy of every paragraph that you do, because chances are you will find another scholarship or something that asks for it. Also be on the lookout for scholarships where your parents work. Like there's a CSEA scholarship that comes out. I did a Hannaford scholarship because I work at Hannaford, but that would also apply to any kids who work there. I'm sure like Market 32 has something.
Yeah.
Pretty much every union has one. There's the Teachers Union scholarship. There's a healthcare workers kids scholarship. There's military scholarships, like all of it.
I also think something that we skipped over on the topic of essays is supplemental essays that colleges have. So if you, this is going back to the Common App. Sorry for like switching the topic, but going back to the Common App, certain colleges have their own essay topics that you would like them that they would like you to answer. Like, so when I applied to University of Washington, they had me do a whole nother personal essay, a different topic than my regular one. But the majority of them are just like, how will you add diversity to our campus?
Yeah.
They're not too hard. If you're applying to a school like MIT, so MIT when I applied, they didn't have an essay. You didn't submit an essay. You just had these 3 supplementals that you had to do. I think they were like something about you and your community, why you chose the career path that you're currently looking into, and something that you love to do. And those are also a great thing to hold on to because there's a lot of overlap. I use those to apply at with my supplemental essays at a bunch of different schools, and also scholarships.
Yeah, they're good for scholarships too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I had to write a lot of essays about, oh, why did you choose your major? And so and it had to be like 250 words. So keeping again a master copy of that and using it for everything else, because you will use it for everything else, will definitely come in handy.
I wrote a supplemental essay about what Ben and Jerry's flavor ice cream I would be. I think that was my favorite, actually. So they're kind of wild. They can get out there, but
Yeah.
they relatively follow the same thing.
What would you guys recommend for people in middle school or early high school who are looking to set up their high school path in order to prepare them for college? So like what classes to take and like how to exceed in those classes?
Very good question.
So take the hardest classes that you can and work hard on them.
Basically.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't need to worry about falling back. Like if you take the hardest classes you can, but at the same time know what's in your range.
Yeah, know
if
what
you
you
know
can.
you're not good at physics and you don't need it, maybe try Spanish. You know?
Would you guys recommend like having like a few hard courses and then have like maybe like 2 safety net courses that you can always fall back on to have like exceedingly good grades? Like
So,
if you're really good at Spanish.
I think it's just genuinely good for your mental health not to take
Yeah.
all those.
No, those can be great to boost your average if you have some easy courses mixed in. But keep in mind, the harder courses tend to be weighted more.
This is
So,
true.
Take computer science too.
yeah, it's weighted.
It's weighted and you will need it at some point in the future. most schools, colleges require you now. I think at least most liberal arts ones
Yeah.
require you to take a computer science course again. So having some familiarity with that system and what you're looking at will help. And it is weighted like a college course, even though it isn't college credit. So
Also, it's super fun and easy. Like, it's not hard as you think it would be.
right. As far as like math goes, that's really up to you. If you know you're going into a career that's more statistics based, you could take stats, or you could assume that your college isn't gonna, or you could, like, again, not to go back to psychology, but like my school has stats for psych as a class. So I didn't take stats this year because it was like, oh, they're gonna make me retake it anyway, so I'll take calc instead. But
On the opposite of what you just said, would you recommend doing that, or would you also recommend the idea of taking stats, so then when you go to college you have like a basic idea, so when you go into that class you can succeed?
again, that's entirely up to you. If you know that you do better already knowing stuff and then like just relearning it, then do that. If you know that you can still pick up things quickly and you want to familiar and you, or like if you're concerned about the fact like, oh, Mr. Diamond teaches it this way and that's how I'll learn it, but then the other teacher will expect it to be done a different way or something,
Yeah.
then
So, like, in Molly's case, where it's not, like, plain stats, it's, like, stats for psych, there's going to be some differences there, so she probably wants to take stats for
exactly.
psych. Other things other than classes in high school,
Clubs.
early on, find what you
Leadership.
love. Get involved with your clubs, find some leadership positions. You don't have to right away your freshman year, but definitely get invested enough in the clubs that by your senior year that you do have a leadership position and you're contributing something to the club.
Exactly.
Especially junior year, I would start getting leadership.
I would also say, like, your freshman, maybe sophomore year, just try everything. Like, you'll find something that you like. You'll find a group of people, even if you're like, oh, science club, I'm not really into science. Like, maybe it's like a group of people that you really like, and you wind up finding something that you're super interested in, and then you work your way up, and then you can be like, oh, I contributed this, 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 and this. And then, you know?
In Galva, you have the unique opportunity that, like, you can be involved in everything. Everyone's involved in everything. You don't have to just be like, oh, I'm in science club, so that's all of my time, and I can't be involved in robotics club. You can do both. So you can get involved and get leadership positions in a lot of different things. And that looks really good on an application and sets you apart.
And also note on the Common app itself, they have a section for activities where you can have maybe, like, I think you maybe have like, I don't know,
I think it's like 10.
150 words of explaining what you accomplished during the club. And you can have 10 and rank them by which are more important to you.
Definitely find the stuff that's important to you, because you're not going to be able to like pretend like you love, you just keep a science club with the example. You can't just pretend that you love like learning about the environment and that stuff your entire high school career. That's going to be really hard to do. So if you like find the stuff that you actually are interested in and then make it something, that's what's
Exactly.
going to set you apart.
Oh, and my final question: what are you guys most excited for? Like when you like go to college, like what are you looking forward to most?
I'm gonna have AC in my dorm room actually, and my own bathroom. So I'm actually pretty psyched about that.
Taking classes that I actually care about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like-minded people, because everyone at ESF, I'm pretty certain, believes in climate change. Or else,
Yeah.
why would they be there?
I'm really excited about getting involved with research, working with my professors. Well, thank you for listening, and we hope this helps.
Bye.